At the far edge of the ancient world, there is an island where sailors go to die standing up. Hundreds of them crowd the black shore, men of gray stone, swords raised against an enemy they never touched. Every statue wears the same expression, not terror, not rage, but wonder, as if the last thing they saw was beautiful. Something lives at the center of this island, and every kingdom on earth calls it a monster. But it was not born a monster. It was made piece by piece by the gods themselves. So hold one question as this story unfolds, because everything turns on it. Who really made the monster? This is the true, full story of Medusa. Years before the first sailor turned to stone, a young woman climbs the white steps of a temple by the sea. Her name is Medusa, and in a city famous for beautiful women, strangers stop in the street just to watch her pass. Her hair is her glory, dark waves falling past her waist, catching copper fire in the morning sun. She has given her life to Athena, goddess of wisdom, and the goddess demands one thing of her priestesses, a vow of purity. Every dawn, Medusa tends the sacred flame, and every dawn, the city loves her a little more. Sailors leave offerings just to glimpse her at the altar, and poets say she is lovelier than the goddess herself. It is the kind of praise that flatters a girl, and the kind of praise that gods never forget. Because far below the harbor, in the cold green dark, something older than the city is watching too. Poseidon, lord of every ocean, brother of Zeus, a god who has never once been told no. He watches her through every tide, patient as deep water, and his want grows heavier than the sea. Then one evening, as the temple empties and the lamps burn low, the harbor begins to rise. Medusa is alone at the altar when the great doors groan open and cold salt wind floods the sanctuary. She turns and sees the sea standing in the doorway, wearing the shape of a god. She runs to Athena's statue and clings to its feet because a temple is the one place nothing can touch you. She is wrong because the sea has never once stopped at a door it wanted to pass. The shadow of a great wave falls across the marble, the lamps drown, and the doors slam shut. What happens in Athena's temple that night breaks a law older than the gods themselves. By dawn, the water has withdrawn, and Medusa kneels alone on the wet stone, her vow taken from her. She lifts her face to the statue of her goddess and begs for justice, and the statue's eyes begin to glow. Athena descends into her own violated temple, and the air turns so cold that frost crawls across the marble. The goddess looks at the retreating sea, and she looks at the weeping girl, and she chooses. She will not make war on her uncle the sea, but a goddess can do anything she likes to a mortal. Call it rage at a stained sanctuary, call it something crueler, but Athena raises her hand over the girl. Medusa feels it first in her scalp, a shifting, a whispering, as every strand of her famous hair comes alive. Serpents, dozens of them, coiling up from her head, tasting the air with small black tongues. She screams and grips the altar, and under her fingers the sacred marble turns gray and splits. Then comes the last gift, spoken like a blessing and shaped like a knife. No one who meets her eyes will ever hurt her again, because no one who meets her eyes will live. Athena calls it protection. It sounds like mercy. It will work like a plague. Medusa staggers out into the sunrise, calling for help, and a priestess she has known since childhood turns toward her voice. One look. The woman stops in mid-step, arms still reaching out, and grays into stone forever. By nightfall, Medusa is running for the edge of the world, and the city that loved her is praying she never returns. At the rim of the Western Ocean, there is an island of black rock where even the seabirds will not land. Two ancient sisters keep a den there, Stheno and Euryale, immortal daughters of the old sea, winged and unkillable. They take Medusa in without one question because monsters are the only family that never asks what happened to you. For a while, there is something almost like peace, just wind, waves, and no human eyes for her to murder. She learns to love the dark of her cave, where there is nothing to look at and nothing to lose. Then, one gray morning, a sail rises on the horizon and her blood turns to ice. Shipwrecked sailors wade ashore shouting for fresh water, and they walk straight toward her cave. She hides her face, she screams at them to leave, she presses both hands over her eyes. But one of them grabs her wrist and pulls, and her hands come away, and the beach goes silent. That night, she counts 7 new statues in the surf, and she does not sleep again for a year. She begs the gods for mercy, for death, for anything, and the sky above her island stays silent. Because the ships keep coming. A story is crossing the world faster than any sail can carry it. A demon woman at the edge of the sea, they whisper, with living snakes for hair and death in her eyes. Heroes come hunting glory. Kings send soldiers. Traders come for the treasure that rumor invents for her island. Every one of them joins the silent garden on her shore, and every statue makes the legend grow. Years pass. Medusa stops counting the stone men, and something inside her quietly closes like a door. The girl who once tended a sacred flame now sits in the black, listening for the sound of oars. Some nights she walks among the statues in the moonlight and whispers an apology to every frozen face. She has become exactly what Athena made her, and the world has decided she deserves it. And far away, on a bright island called Seriphos, a king is about to say her name out loud. King Polydectes wants a woman named Danae, a quiet widow with royal blood and no interest in kings. But Danae has a guardian, her grown son Perseus, a young man with a hero's shoulders and a temper to match. As long as Perseus stands beside his mother, Polydectes cannot lay a finger on her. So the king builds a trap out of nothing but words, and he springs it at a feast in front of everyone. Every guest must bring him the gift of a horse, and Perseus, who owns nothing in the world, stands empty-handed. The hall laughs at the poor young man, and his pride catches fire exactly the way the king knew it would. Burning with shame, Perseus swears before every guest that he will bring the king anything else he dares to name. Polydectes smiles, lets the silence stretch, and then asks for the head of Medusa. The laughter dies instantly because every soul in that hall knows the boy has just promised away his life. That night, Danae weeps, and Perseus stands alone on the shore, staring west into the dark. And the gods are watching him. Athena comes to him first, silver in the moonlight, because she has unfinished business at the edge of the world. She hands him a shield of polished bronze, flawless as a mirror, with one instruction that will decide everything. He must never look at Medusa directly. He must watch only her reflection, which carries no curse at all. Hermes lands beside them, laughing, bearing winged sandals that drink the wind and a curved sword that can shear through bronze. From the Lord of the Dead comes the strangest gift of all, a helmet of shadow that makes its wearer vanish. But no god will tell him where the island lies. Only 3 creatures older than night know that secret. In a cave where daylight has never entered, Perseus finds the Graeae, 3 gray sisters sharing a single eye. He watches from the darkness as the eye passes from hand to withered hand, and he times his moment. In mid-pass, he snatches the eye out of the air, and their entire world goes dark inside his fist. Shrieking and clawing, the blind sisters trade their secret for their sight, the way west to the island of stone men. Perseus steps off a cliff into the open sky, and the sandals catch him, and he flies. He crosses the last maps and the last stars men have named, chasing the sunset to the rim of the sea. Below him, the ocean turns from wine, dark, to black, and the air itself begins to feel like held breath. The island rises at dusk, black cliffs ringed with the frozen silhouettes of every man who came before him. Nothing moves on the beach but his own reflection, sliding across 100 dead men's shields. He lands among the statues and walks backward toward the cave, watching the world in the mirror of his shield. Frozen faces slide past in the bronze, sailors, soldiers, kings, all wearing that same terrible look of wonder. The cave breathes salt and musk around him, and somewhere in the dark, hundreds of small tongues taste the air. Then he sees her in the shield, asleep in her coils, and his heart forgets its rhythm. Even now, ruined and hunted at the end of the world, the face in the bronze is heartbreaking. For one dangerous moment, Perseus hesitates, because the monster in his mirror looks like a woman who is only tired. Then the serpents wake, rising from her brow one by one, hissing at a scent they cannot find. Medusa's eyes open, and they are the color of the sea that ruined her. She stares straight through the invisible hero, searching the darkness, and her gaze sweeps past him like a blade. He raises the sword high, watching only the bronze, his whole life balanced on a reflection. One flash of silver in the dark. Then the hissing stops, and the cave goes utterly still. The longest curse in the world is over, and for the first time in years, the island is quiet. Then, out of the mist where Medusa fell, something impossible unfolds, a pair of vast white wings. Pegasus. A winged stallion bright as sea foam bursts from the cave mouth and climbs into the night. Her child by the sea god, held prisoner in her cursed body all these years, born flying, born free. Perseus barely has time to wonder at it, because the whole island suddenly begins to scream. Stheno and Euryale have found their sister, and their grief splits the cliffs like an earthquake. Perseus seals the head inside a silver sack and leaps for the sky, and two immortal furies rise behind him. Their claws rake the air, a breath from his heels, and he slams the helmet of shadow onto his head. He vanishes. The Gorgons circled the empty night, screaming a name the world will never stop saying. High over the deserts of Libya, glittering drops slip from the sack, and where each one lands, serpents wake beneath the sand. Even in death, she is making the world more dangerous, because that is all the world ever taught her. Then, on a far coast, Perseus sees a young woman chained to a sea cliff, waiting to be devoured. Her name is Andromeda, an offering to a sea monster, one more life thrown to the ocean's endless appetite. Perseus dives as the beast surfaces, and this time he does not need the head, only the sword. He drives the monster back beneath the waves, breaks the chains, and flies home with a bride in his arms. On Seriphos, King Polydectes lounges on his throne, certain the boy is a statue on some forgotten shore. Then the doors of the hall swing open, and a dead man walks in carrying a silver sack. The king laughs and demands his gift, and the whole court leans forward, hungry for the joke. So Perseus turns his face away and lifts the head of Medusa high above his own. The laughter turns to stone in 100 throats, and the hall becomes a garden of statues. When Perseus lowers the head, his mother is free, and even in death, Medusa has ended a tyrant. But the story does not end with the hero, because the head has one more master to serve. Perseus climbs the white steps of Athena's temple and lays the silver sack at the feet of the goddess. Athena lifts the face of her ruined priestess and studies it for a long, unreadable moment. Then she mounts it at the center of her own gleaming shield, where it will stay forever. Understand what that means. The goddess who cursed her now carries her into every battle as her greatest protection. For 1,000 years, her face will be carved over doorways, onto temples, onto armor, to frighten evil away. The girl who was punished for being seen becomes the face. A whole civilization trusts to guard everything it loves. So, who really made the monster? A god who would not stop, a goddess who would not forgive, a world that kept sending ships. Perseus killed a gorgon on a black island at the edge of the world, but no one ever killed Medusa. She is still up there on the oldest temples, still watching over us, still staring back, and she never blinks. If this story held you, the next myth is already waiting.